Good day everyone, I'm Mark Calvin Paloma Montino and I'm here for presenting my research paper to our Mapua course in graduate school, EMG 210, Strategic Marketing and Financial Management. So without further ado, let's begin. The research entitled Risk Management in Financial Economic Aspects for Qatar's High-Rise Apartment Building Construction. The contents of this study includes introduction, methodology, results and discussion, and lastly, conclusion. For the abstract of this study, Middle Eastern countries contribute significantly to the global economy through the building sector. Various buildings projects cost millions of dollars each year. These projects often go through several phases, starting with the pre-investment phase, moving on to the concept and design phase, and concluding with the construction and commissioning phases. Projects involving high-rise building include several financial and economic risks. They cause financial hardships for project parties. The mitigation of this risk has, however, hardly been touched upon in previous studies. Then let's proceed with the introduction. Background of the study. The construction industry is more vulnerable to risk and uncertainty compared to many other industries. Numerous projects, past records suggest poor performance in terms of meeting the schedule and financial goals. Many schedule and expense overruns are caused by either unanticipated occurrences, which a skilled project manager may or may not have predicted, or expected occurrences for which uncertainty was not properly addressed. It is recommended that paying more attention to the entire process of risk management through financial economic factors may lead to a considerable increase in project management performance. Large capital projects are not the only one that involve risk and uncertainty. Significance of the study. The ability to successfully detect and control potential dangers is provided by risk management, which is an important activity for businesses. Once a danger has been identified, it is easy to lower it. Risk management may also help a business make good decisions since it provides a framework for doing so. Failure to finish a project in line with established specification, on schedule, and within the allotted budget can have disastrous effect on all parties involved. Therefore, risk management is essential to the success of building project. Objectives of the study. This study's primary objective is to simply look at the risk management practices that are crucial to construction projects' success. The study also seeks to identify the important financial economic risk factors that might impede construction operation by reviewing the literature and drawing on the expertise of contractors and owners, who are the subject matter expert in this field. Examining each observable financial economic risk factors, distribution and degree of significance considering the opinions of owners and contractors. Researching how each financial economic risk, such as contractors and owners, manage risk in the industry. Examining in the distribution as well as the severity of all identified risk factors. And lastly, providing sensible criticism and suggestion aimed at increasing the effectiveness of contracting firms in this field and enhancing construction risk management techniques. Now let's move on with the methodology. The method for gathering the data for this study is covered in this chapter. Additionally, this chapter provides information on research strategy, sample size, target audience, and study design. Additionally, some of the fundamental difficulties faced are covered. Resources and a thorough technique are given. In this study, The descriptive analysis of the data is conducted using the qualitative technique. The study description, analysis, and interpretation of data and findings all benefited from the research's influences, viewpoints, and data resources. To get qualitative data, we employed questionnaire surveys and conducted interviews. After that, qualitative approaches were used to describe and evaluate the qualitative data. A population is made up of the entirety of the observation with which we are concerned. In this research, the population is the total number of staff of China Railway Construction Company who participated in the survey. Questionnaires are to be distributed to staff of China Railway Construction Company. The equal number of the questionnaires will be delivered to the employees who are part of the project management team to conduct evaluation between contractors and employees, viewpoints. The questionnaire was made up of 5 parts to fulfill the purpose of this research, given below. The company profile, techniques for reducing the impact of probability of danger, techniques for risk analysis that may be used to evaluate and quantify the effects of risk variable, techniques for preventing risks that could be utilized to stop danger from happening, and lastly, risk factors that have been noted by professionals, the study, and the literature. The word significance on the questionnaire served as a placeholder for the degree of impact for each risk class. The purpose of the questionnaire was to evaluate practitioners' perception and assessment of each risk category in order to determine its relative importance. The questionnaire is supposed to elicit an overall assessment of how important risk is, even if the degree of influence changes from project to project. Each responder was asked to evaluate each risk effect on the project delays and provide a score to each one between 1 and 10. To increase the flexibility of choosing statistics procedures, scale 1 to 10 is used. A risk is given a rank between 1 and 10, with 1 being the risk that would contribute the least, and 10 being the risk that would contribute the most. In addition, ranks 1 to 3 indicate low significant risk, ranks 4 to 7 indicate medium risk, and ranks 8 to 10 indicate severe risk. Data collection. Personal interviews were used to gather data for the purpose of asking questions. A face-to-face process known as individual interviews was used to gather information from the respondents and ask them questions about their opinions and the specifics of the questionnaire. 53 out of the 70 respondents that were willing to participate, or 76 of the entire sample, consented to participate. The proportion was 78% for contractors and 74% for the owners. Data analysis. Analyzing the outcomes of the analysis to see if they support the necessary hypothesis for each inquiry is an interesting process. Utilizing the statistical package for social sciences, quantitative statistical analysis was carried out for the questionnaire to determine the seriousness of the factors contributing to the contractor's failure in Qatar. Data analysis is carried out. In addition to ranking, mean rates for the various sub-factors were evaluated across the group and individually. By using analysis of variance, it was determined how seriously contractors felt about each reason. Research boundaries. Due to time constraints, this research will solely focus on projects carried out by the China Railway Construction Company and will not account for the existence of other construction firms in the state of Qatar. This research will focus only on large projects that are registered with China Railway Construction Company due to time restriction. There are too many sources of risk when it comes to completing a construction project, including construction risk, environmental risk, commercial risk, geotechnical risk, geographical, legal, political, communication, social, technological, and so on. However, the financial economic risk will be the exclusive focus on this study. Now let's talk about the results and discussion. This chapter contains the study's conclusion, the importance of the risk components, how they are allocated, how to manage risks, and how to do analysis make up most of it. Next, each risk factor's distribution and severity will be compared from the viewpoints of the contractors and owners. This chapter goes into detail on the findings and in conclusion of the study. 6 risk factors were listed in the questionnaire with financial and economic concerns, getting the most attention. The components will be displayed in terms of severity and distribution in accordance with the responses provided by the participant. Under risk factors contractor's perspective, there were 6 risk factors in the questionnaire, 6 of which came under the financial economic category, using the participant replies as a guide. The risk aspects will be presented in terms of severity and distribution. Under severity, financial hazards had the highest counts of the assessed risk categories reported by the contractors responded, as seen on this table 1. Contractors believe that their financial failure is the risk that might have the greatest financial consequences. Financial factors were responsible for more than 80% of the setbacks. Hence, financial risks were given the highest weight among all the other risks in the analysis on this table. Under distribution of contractors' perspective, Figure 1 shows that the contractors are ready to handle the risk of contractors' financial failure, 66%, uncontrolled cash flow, 88%. The owners were given the risk of late payments by the majority of contractors, 82% instead. It is one of the risk categories that is frequently contested. The respondents from the contractors survey were undecided on who should assume the risk of inflation, but 40% of them saw it as a burden for the contractors because the contractors in Qatar have terms that allocate such risk to them. Such term may even be included in the minutes from the pre-bid meeting. The hazard of this risk category is thought to oscillate, increasing as inflation rises and decreasing as inflation rises, according to the contractors. Now let's move on with the risk factors under owner's perspective. The degree and distribution of risk variables will be thoroughly examined from the owner's perspective in this category. The work completed for the contractor's respondent will be done again the owners. So under severity of owner's perspective, the weighted and graded financial risks that might be involved in building projects are shown in this table. Owner respondent gave the financial collapse of the contractor 210 weight, ranking it as the most important financial risk, following the risk of inflation 186, uncontrolled cash flow and monopoly risk were ranked 3rd and 4th respectively, with the weights of 171 and 166. Even though uncontrolled cash flow is the primary cause of the contractor's financial failure in Qatar, the opinions of owner respondents were completely different from those of contractors. Owners are worried about failure, but not about fluctuating currency rates or late payments. In essence, business owners were concerned about continuing their operation. Under distribution of owner's perspective, results of the study shows that both contractors and owners elected to place the risk of late payments on contracts on the owners with a comparable repose rate, 82%. Owners thought that the contractor should take responsibility for its failure and how it handled its finances. Inflation, exchange rate fluctuation, and monopoly risk, on the other hand, did not appear to be shared by owners, even though this risk should ideally be shared between contractors and owners by including contract clauses that specify the necessary conditions and requirements for sharing. These are the risks that each party may be able to manage more effectively under certain circumstances, and that may be included in the agreement, as was previously advised. Now let's move on with the risk management action contractor's perspective. So under preventive action of contractor's perspective, the study conclusion, as shown in figure 3, show that the contractors often rely on their own judgment to develop the most effective plans for risk prevention. Evaluation or subjective probability takes into use a decision past makers' experience with projects of a similar nature when estimating the likelihood of risk exposure and the results. As a result, current project information should be obtained and utilized, as it may not be sufficient to rely just on experience and personal judgment. Therefore, contractors believe that adding risk premiums to time estimates and gathering current project information at the project planning stage was a useful way for reducing risk. For the mitigative actions under contractor's perspective, Figure 4 illustrates the 6 alternative mitigating strategy. The percentage above the column displays the effectiveness percentage for each technique. The first mitigation method employed by the respondent was close monitoring of employees help reduce wasteful effort, and their last mitigation strategy was modifying your billing strategy. The second best mitigation strategies for reducing the consequences of setbacks included work directly with subcontractors and lengthen the hours worked. Although these strategies were rarely used, this might mean that given the fact that construction projects often involve a number of labor-intensive tasks, energy on the job site is one of the most important factors for project success. Therefore, extending the workday typically has a positive impact on productivity, depending on the ability of supervisor and materials, the site physical limitation, and the stage of the construction project. Now let's move on with the risk management actions under owner's perspective. For the preventive actions, owners and contractors thought that the best approach was to rely on the subjective judgment to create a suitable software. After that, owners saw that obtaining current project information to create an appropriate timetable and for an accurate program consult earlier and current similar projects as being extremely effective preventive measure. Additionally, owners decided not to employ using quantitative risk analysis tools as well as transfer or distribute risks to or with other parties for mitigating the consequence of risk. This conclusion may have two primary causes: a lack of competence in analysis procedures and a practical challenge in figuring out the probability distribution of risk. Owners did not support sharing risk with other parties. For the mitigative actions, under owner's perspective, Figure 6 shows the 6 mitigating strategies that are suggested. The percentage above each column displays the effectiveness of each strategy. The first mitigation method suggested by the respondent is direct judgment based on expertise and particular abilities. And the last mitigation strategy is utilizing simulator software to analyze simulation. Extending working hours and maintaining constant contact with the contractors were the second most successful mitigation technique for minimizing the effect of setbacks. Nevertheless, altering the construction process was rarely adopted as a mitigation approach. This may suggest that the energy generated on site is one of the most crucial factors for project success, given that construction projects usually require several labor-intensive tasks. Therefore, depending on the availability of supplies and supervisor, the physical limitation on site, and the state of construction, extending the working hours frequently speed up the development. And last, for the conclusion. This study was conducted to investigate the risk factors that are applicable to and distributed throughout the construction sector. The effectiveness and implementation of risk analysis methodologies, as well as risk management actions, were also assessed. The viewpoints of owners and contractors on the subjects were investigated. These objectives were met in terms of financial economic risk. Patterns were identified and recommendations for possible improvement to risk management tactics were made. The construction sector differs from other economic sectors in several ways. It is fragmented, extremely subject to economic cycles, and intensely competitive because of the large volume enterprises and relatively simple startup. Because of these characteristics, it is simply seen as a risky business. This study goals is to uncover the financial and economic risk factors that the construction sector must manage. In order to do this, the team is gathering data on building hazards, their effects, and potential remedies. The effectiveness of risk analysis method was also assessed. The severity and distribution analysis of these risk factors, however, was the key conclusion of this study. And that is the end of my research paper. Thank you and have a good day.